Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get seated. Thanks for coming down. You're really going to be, I think, going to be encouraged and inspired by what you're going to hear today. Your attendance this morning is a privilege. You are lucky to be in a school and a community that's able to provide you with an outstanding experience and a chance to connect with some of our distinguished alumni. These are individuals who walk these same hallways, sat in many of the same classrooms that you do, whose experiences here help shape their lives. We are honored to welcome the 2025 recipients of the BEXLEY High School Distinguished Alumni Award, along with many of their friends and family members, back to BEXLEY High School today. And now, before I turn the program over to the BEXLEY Education Foundation Board Chairman, Adam Eisenberg, I want to extend a personal welcome to all of our honored guests today. Thank you for being here and for coming home to BEXLEY High School.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. On behalf of the BEXLEY Education Foundation, I want to welcome our BEXLEY High School Distinguished Alumni, their family and friends, and all the students who are joining us at today's celebration. At the BEXLEY Education Foundation, we treasure alumni and the important role they play in advancing our mission and helping to foster our vision of an inclusive community of engaged learners, educators, and alumni. We come together today as alumni and future alumni, and please know that you share a very special bond, and believe me, wherever you go, you will find BEXLEY alumni. We believe that our alumni have so much to share with you and hope that you will be inspired by today's award recipients. They are all incredibly talented and accomplished individuals, and we are so excited they are here today. And now, to begin today's recognition program, I would like to invite the Foundation's Vice Chair of Alumni Relations, Angela Mugler, also an alum, to the stage.
Thank you, Adam. As an alumna of BEXLEY High School and a parent of 2 current students and 2 graduates of the BEXLEY City Schools, it gives me great pleasure to present today's awards. Let's get started. Our first recipient, Stan Cohen, is a member of the BHS class of 1965. He graduated with a degree in chemistry from Case Western Reserve University prior to attending medical school at The Ohio State University. He completed his residency at the Johns Hopkins University and a fellowship in pediatric gastroenterology and nutrition at Harvard, Massachusetts General Hospital. Today, Dr. Stan is an internationally recognized expert in pediatric gastroenterology and nutrition and a frequent TV and radio guest and medical conference speaker. He was a founder of the Children's Center for Digestive Healthcare, which sees more children and teens with gastrointestinal, liver, and nutritional problems than any other organization in the world. He is an active medical researcher and publisher, medical textbook editor, and popular author. He co-founded Nutrition for Kids, the most trusted online resource and community for parents and caregivers who want to improve the way their children eat. We are so excited to have him here with us today. Dr. Cohen.
Thank you very much. It's strange to be on the stage. I was on several productions in high school, the Pajama Game and things like that, but never a lead role. Today I get the lead, or at least one of them. So it's a particular honor for me to be here and accept this award as the second in my family and as the 4th in my class. My Uncle Don received it in 2000 for starting the Track and Field Hall of Fame. The people who nominated me, John Kaplan, received it for working in 42 countries with over 5 million AIDS victims and stemming that tide. And then Bill Salt was here and fostered integrative medicine, treating a patient as a complete person. So I am humbled to be part of that legacy and to be part of this current class and the past recipients who have received it. I'm thrilled and privileged to be among them. But my point is really that this isn't so much to honor us as to inspire you, to make it evident that you can do something substantial with your lives throughout your careers, with every circle and circumstance you find yourself in. I should have added an asterisk to the fact that I said my family. I was actually adopted at birth, and my parents brought me here and gave me a great education within the system. What's interesting is that just a few years ago, my family from New York and New Haven found me, the birth family. They gave me my life, certainly, and my genes, but I still regard Bexley as my home and my real family. And it's been amazing that my adoption has also given me a very different perspective. When I thought about it before, until I realized who my birth family was, I could see myself as being related to anyone. And that gave me the sense that I needed to be kind to everyone as a physician taking care of them. I chose medicine because I wanted to help people and because I thought I could better some lives. Pediatrics because I actually worked at the Columbus Jewish Center for years in their day camp, and I loved working with kids. In fact, it's much more fun to be with you guys than it is with older folks like me. The focus on pediatric nutrition and gastroenterology came from a suggestion by one of my OSU professors who said, Stan, you ought to go in this new field. It's just being started. You could be a pioneer. And I thought, that's the coolest thing I had ever heard. So that's immediately what I went into. And I want you to know that it was a great start and it gave me all those accomplishments that you've heard about. But what started that whole journey was back here at Bexley. John Schott, who was our math teacher back then, taught the principles of logic and the rules of mathematics. One day he actually mentioned that an angle had never been trisected. And I thought, that is ridiculous. Somebody's got to be able to do that. That sounds simple. So I sat with my compass and ruler and tried to trisect an angle for 2 straight days, stayed up all night, continued to work on it, and then brought my proof into him that I thought I had really done so. He pointed out my errors, but then said, let me show you a book. You have come as close as anybody ever has. And that gave me the idea that I love challenges. I just love this idea of accepting challenges that I wanted to work on. The second thing that happened was that English and social studies and science gave me a start in thinking about critical thinking, making decisions, not just merely accepting what people said, but thinking about asking the questions that delve deeper into the subjects. That was a key to the kingdom. It gave me the idea of improving my understanding, crafting answers that were creative, and continuing to look at questions whenever I thought something was wrong or incomplete in the answer. I also developed an interest in writing from my days on the torch and from when I was in career day in 7th grade. But I found that you have to keep writing and keep reading to improve that craft. The point of telling you all this really is that there's several possible lessons. First, I think everybody needs to find their passions and make them into their strengths. And they also have to be realistic. When I was in high school, what I really wanted to do was be taller than 6 feet and play shortstop for the New York Yankees. In case you didn't notice, neither of those happened. So I had to set a different set of goals, and I've kept moving them up. When I've accomplished them, I've gone on and set new ones that I'm still working toward. And as you start with those passions, nurture them into strengths. You'll have weaknesses, we all do. Mine is singing and my French accent and my typing. I still have a problem hunting and pecking when I'm on the computer. Secondly, you need to find your friends, whoever they are, and stay with them and nurture them as well. And also appreciate them in a different way. Look at music, look at art, or the people who are actually your friends. Third, continue to ask questions, but also ask for help when you need it. Fourth, give back. Thank the people that you should have gratitude towards. Your parents, your relatives, your teachers, your mentors, the people that have supported you through all your years and your trivial and more difficult acts trying to get better. 5, give forward. Not only help yourself as you grow, but help others as well. Do well by doing good for others. Know that the others shouldn't just be your friends, but those that are beyond the borders of Bexley, beyond this city of Columbus, beyond this country of the United States. Get to know other cultures, get to see what's out there, and see who needs your help, and work with them. There are people who don't eat at Johnson's ice cream and Rubino's that really can't even afford it, that you can help them with. Not really last, stay healthy mentally and physically. Exercise your body and your brain. To start, I'd like everybody to join me. Raise a hand if you would. Curl those fingers into a fist. Now that's a symbol of power, but it's also, keep them up, keep them up. It's also a reminder that you need to eat 5 fistfuls of fruits and vegetables a day. That is your science lesson, because that will feed your microbiome. Those are those bugs that are inside you that keep you healthy. The second thing I'd like you to do is raise 2 hands. Put them together and thank the teachers and staff here who have been your mentors. In memory and in honor of the teachers who I had that are both here and elsewhere, I'd like to thank them as well. So be well, do good and great things, and appreciate those who've helped you along the way and those who share this planet with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Our next recipient is Internet pioneer and computer scientist, Dr. Nathaniel Borenstein, a member of the class of 1975 who became interested in computers as a student here in Bexley. Dr. Borenstein attended Grinnell College, majoring in mathematics and religious studies before pursuing his PhD in computer science at Carnegie Mellon. Since then, he has taken a lead role in creating many important innovative technologies, including the, hopefully I'm going to say it right, is it MIME or MIME? MIME, okay. Standard for multimedia data on the net, and co-founding the world's first cyberbank, virtual holdings. He has also taught at University of Michigan, Grinnell College, and Carnegie Mellon University, and continues to lecture on the future of AI. Dr. Borenstein is currently working on a memoir about his life and the intersection of the internet and spirituality. I'd like to welcome Dr. Nathaniel Borenstein to the stage.
So I have some prepared things to say, but first I have to say I never met Stan before yesterday, but when I was a student here 10 years later, I trisected the angle, and I took it to my math teacher, Mr. Rudder. He spent the whole weekend disproving it, but we have that in common. I'm also a singer. Anyway, what I really want to talk about today is why you should have optimism despite how incredibly scary the world can seem sometimes. If the last 50 years have taught me anything, it's that everything may change, everything will change, but that shouldn't scare you because it can change greatly for the better. And I'm going to give you just two examples, Bexley and me. So first, Bexley. I suspect most of you have no idea what Bexley was like 50 years ago, and I also suspect you all thought you got out of class to come today, but I'm going to give you a history lesson, a very brief one. Okay, 1964. 1964 presidential election was the biggest landslide of the last 200 years. The United States has never been this unified. The candidates were Lyndon Johnson, who was working on a platform of civil rights and who was writing the Kennedy legacy after the assassination. And he was running against Barry Goldwater, who was opposed to civil rights and wanted to use nuclear weapons in Vietnam. So it was a pretty stark contrast. And as I said, it was the biggest landslide of the last 200 years. Nationally, Johnson got 61%. And if you don't think that sounds big, consider that President Trump says he got a landslide with 49. Because this is as united as the country's ever been. And Ohio was even more united. Ohio went 63% for Johnson. Bexley, on the other hand, went 60% for Goldwater. That's how conservative things were here. So when you think about that and think about how much things have changed, I still can't believe this. I've checked it a couple times. Apparently, Kamala Harris got 75% here last year. Just staggers my mind. But even more staggering is that you gave me an alumni award. Because I am most likely the most infamous radical in the history of the Bexley schools. Let me tell you about that. I was unpopular at Bexley, but not really so much unpopular as notorious. First of all, I was very unathletic, so that doesn't help with being popular. But beyond that, I was a left-wing activist in a community that went 60% for Goldwater. When I was a freshman, I started an underground newspaper, The Uncensored Truth. And by the way, if the High School or Alumni Association has an archive and want it, I still have a few extra copies of this. It's hard to read because we used ditto machines back then, but it really is true. I started all sorts of petitions and protests. The administration hated me early on, and I probably got kicked out of this place 50 times at least for violating the dress code. In fact, if I woke up in the morning and didn't feel like going to school, I would just put on a shirt with a peace symbol. And I knew they'd kick me out pretty soon. And I spent much of my junior year wearing a dress. And I didn't do that because I had gender identity issues. We didn't exactly know what they were yet. I did it because I had scrutinized the dress code and figured out that nothing prevented boys from wearing girls' clothing. So I did this as a dress code protest. So yeah, I was a little radical. And there was this one other little thing. Yes, I sued the school. Here's your other history lesson. I hope you all know this, but in 1970, the Ohio National Guard killed 4 students at Kent State for peacefully protesting against the Vietnam War. And 2 years later, I and a few of my friends wore black armbands to Bexley on the anniversary of that, and we got kicked out. And my father, being a radical, backed me up, and so we sued the school, the principal and the school board. And the next year was very interesting. The day after this was announced, I got assaulted by a math teacher right up there. He left bruises on my chest. We got hate mail, we got nasty phone calls, we got a swastika painted on our garage. But in the end, I won. And the high school set up its first written dress code at that point to try to get things under control. I became the first high school student in American history to win money damages from his principal and school board. Okay? So, and by the way, if the Torch wants to write an article about this, come talk to me. And so, here's the understatement of the century. I did not expect to be standing here today getting an award. And the point here is not, the point, in fact, if you think this has all changed for the worse, that's fine too, because the point is that the world can change wildly within your lifetime. Okay, I would never have dreamed that I'd be standing in front of a crowd here in a community that went 3/4 for a black woman for president. So the world can change for the better, and it should. And you all will have a chance to help make that happen. So that's my first example of how much things can change in your life. My second is me. And here I'm going to talk about something I never, ever, ever talked about until 5 years ago. Growing up, I mentioned that I was very unathletic. My athletic inadequacy made me think that I had a terrible body. That's what I thought about myself. And that translated to ugly. So I thought I was really ugly. And I'm showing you these pictures because this is someone who believed that people only liked him for other things than in spite of the way he looked. This kind of body dysmorphia, it's by stereotype, it's a female thing. I honestly think men just don't like to admit that they even care about how they look. So I never talked about it at all. And I had a great life, I'm not complaining. But for over 60 years, that's what I believed. And then I started to get ready to die. So in 2020, I thought my life was ending. The pandemic was going on. You all know how much fun that year was. You, by the way, you people in this audience are going to be the old folks who are the last one who can remember the great pandemic of 2020. So, tell your grandchildren about it. But this year was really bad for my family. My oldest daughter died suddenly at the beginning of the pandemic. My middle daughter's husband died excruciatingly slowly during the pandemic, leaving 3 children. We had a total of 7 surgeries in my family. The long story of this is even worse, but it was just by far the worst year of my life. And I collapsed and was told I needed massive open heart surgery. Okay, so things looked really bleak. And I knew that I might go through this surgery and recover and have a few more years left on this earth. But basically, if there was one thing I was sure of, it was that my best days were behind me. Because I had a really good career, and that's why I'm getting this award, right? And, now my daughter's gone, my son-in-law's gone, and things will never be the same. So naturally, because life is totally unpredictable, the best part of my life started the next year. How did this happen? Well, facing massive open heart surgery, I decided to enroll in a clinical trial of an experimental drug, a drug now known as Camzyos. And by my 6th day on this drug, not only were all my symptoms gone, I have not had a heart symptom in almost 5 years, okay? So no surgery needed. But physical limitations I'd had all my life that I never knew were due to a heart condition were also gone. I can run more now than I could when I was a student in this high school and thought my body said I was so ugly, right? So then I realized maybe I'm not so ugly. If the source of all my negative feelings about my body is a heart wall, I decided to assume that when I'm just sort of sitting there, I look like about average for a short, fat guy in his 60s, right? I mean, I didn't decide I was Brad Pitt or something, right? And with that realization, then I started to look back on a lifetime of interactions, with people in high school and since, and I realized I'm not so smart either. Okay? Because I misunderstood all sorts of things about my interactions with people because it was based on these assumptions about how they perceived me. So my neuroses started to sort of untwist all the things I'd been carrying all the years. And the net result is that the last 4.5 years have been the best of my life, by far. And I'm starring in commercials for Camzyos. And the point here is simply that your life can change wildly. You don't know what's coming. And if you ever believe you do, you're just full of yourself because nobody knows the future that well. And the fact that life is either random or at least appears random to us means you can't ever know that there's no hope. Bad times usually get better, and you aren't smart enough to have the justification for giving up hope. But this also means the good things won't last forever. And no matter how hard a time you're going through now, I'm willing to bet you can think of something that's good about your life, and it's not going to last either. So you ought to treasure it and really savor it while it lasts. And finally, the last thing I want to say is, as you guys are just beginning this great adventure, and I hope you have as good a one as the 5 of us did, right? You can't plan it. The more expectations you have, the more likely you are to be disappointed. What you need to do is collect skills and passions, things that you're good at and things that you love to do. And the more of those you have, and the more diverse they are, the better a life you're going to end up having. And that's all. Thank you. But one last thing, I also wanted to say, my favorite teacher from high school is here, and so a little round of applause for Marilyn Pritchett, too. All right, thank you.
Our next recipient, Andy Ruben, is a member of the BEXLEY graduating class of 1991 and holds a degree in structural engineering as well as an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis. Mr. Ruben has over 25 years of experience in retail and consumer brands. He is well known for building businesses that didn't exist before. He led corporate strategy for Walmart and then became the Chief Sustainability Officer, where he worked to integrate environmental priorities in everyday operations before taking on global e-commerce strategy, where he launched Walmart's first grocery delivery service. He eventually founded Trove, a company which pioneered branded resale. He continues to provide companies with the tools to build their own resale channels and is a frequent speaker on the future of retail businesses in sustainability, circularity, and growth strategy. Let's welcome Andy Ruben to the stage.
So, there are these two fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way. The older fish sees the two younger fish and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" The two young fish keep swimming, and at some point, one of the younger fish looks at the other fish and says, "What the hell is water?" I first heard this deceptively simple story in a commencement speech by David Foster Wallace called "This Is Water." He gave that speech at Kenyon College 2005. And like David shared after this story and after his remarks, I am absolutely not the wise old fish, and if you're anything like my two recent high school grads, you get plenty of advice on life and college and school and everything else. I'm going to share just a single observation from leading 3 different startups and raising 2 kids. A few weeks back, I was on a flight. We had just landed. We pulled into the gate. The seatbelt sign went off, and 230 people heard the bing on the intercom, got up, got their rollerboards out of the overheads, and piled into the aisle. It was a 6-hour flight. It had been long, and everybody couldn't wait to get down the jet bridge and back out into the airport. We waited, but the jet bridge didn't pull up. And a few minutes later, the pilot got on the intercom and said, "I'm sorry, the gate agents hadn't expected the flight to land early. It's going to be 10 or so minutes." You could see the frustration on people's faces. They were just as frustrated as me. The air was stale. There was a whiff of someone's cologne that had been sitting a long time. There was music playing on the speakers that wasn't helping. And what I couldn't understand is, how did the gate agents not know the plane was arriving? Right? Google knew, the flight trackers knew, the people I was meeting knew, but the gate agents were somehow surprised that the flight arrived. I was kind of pissed. I was upset at the gate agents, I was upset at the airline, at being stuck in a cramped space with 230 people who were also frustrated about the same thing. I couldn't understand, how could the airline not understand how miserable this was? There was a young man who was standing near me, kind of crowded into the aisle, who was fidgeting quite a bit. To me, he seemed like he was making the situation worse. He was shifting his weight, he was moving his rollerboard, he was taking up more than his fair share of space. And so at some point I asked him a question. I said, "Are you okay?" But really what I was doing was saying, "Can you stop fidgeting? You're making it worse for everybody." And then he shared a bit about himself with me. He shared that he had intense anxiety about small spaces and how difficult this was for him. Suddenly I realized I'd been telling myself a story, and that story was that this guy was inconsiderate, right? That he was making the situation worse for me. that I was being wronged. But that was just one possible story. In this case, he actually had a medical condition. And when I realized that, and I understood his story, I realized he was actually doing quite well, given the circumstances. Now, most of the time, I wouldn't have even known the real story. My brain had instantly written a narrative where he was the problem, right now I was the one who was suffering. We all do this. You're waiting to check out behind someone in line who's fumbling for the change. Maybe they're elderly and they're having a hard time. Maybe they just lost their job and they're trying to make ends meet. But you get frustrated, you don't know. Your brain writes they're inconsiderate and you're being punished. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they're a new driver who's terrified to be on the road. Maybe they're just a jerk, but you don't know. And your brain writes, right, that they're obnoxious and you're suffering. I am not saying, hey, just see the best in people. Be positive, look at the world in a positive way. I'm simply pointing out that you are constantly authoring what it means. Whatever the situation you're in means, you're writing a story where everyone else is the problem, and you just don't realize you're doing it. In 2015, I was the CEO of my first startup. We were burning through cash, and we had just secured the funding that we needed. And then the funding fell through. I remember sitting in a small glass conference room with my leadership team as they looked at me for what we do next. The silence was brutal. Everyone was waiting. I wanted to hide. I really did want to evaporate. I was ashamed, not just because the financing fell through, but because I had no idea what to do next. The silence, all of it. It was supposed to be my job. We had hundreds of people with their families, their health care, and my job was to keep the company afloat, and I had absolutely failed. I felt completely stuck, out of options. Like the world had happened to me, and the only thing left to do was just sit and wait out the wreckage. But nothing I was feeling, or however I was feeling, was going to change the situation. The only question was what we were about to do next. So in the coming days, we did reflect on what we believe in and what the crisis gave us a chance to fix. We did make changes. That business became Trove, that you just heard about. But whether Trove succeeded or failed really wasn't the point. The insight was, when everything felt like it was collapsing, we did have a choice, not about whether the financing was there, the financing was gone, but we did have a choice about what it meant and what we do next. The power that I want to discuss is we get to write the next scene, no matter what's taking place. And one of my absolute favorite startup lines is never waste a good crisis. I love it because it recognizes that there will be plenty of crises. And we get to decide what happens in those moments and what we do next. So, what the hell is water? Water is recognizing that you actually get to decide. You think the world happens to you and you just react to it. You think you're stuck. And maybe you are stuck. I mean, sometimes you really are stuck. But you still get to tell the narrative about what being stuck means. You're writing the story mostly from a self-centered default, where things happen to you, and you're powerless. But the power is recognizing that you're actually writing the story. You're doing it. Because once you see that, you get to write the next scene. You will get passed over for things you really care about. You will absolutely get rejected. You even might get stuck waiting for a jet bridge when the gate agents are totally surprised the flights happen to have arrived. But when it feels like you're stuck, I'd encourage you to see the water. You get to decide what it means. This is water. You get to write the next scene. Never waste a good crisis. There's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of power in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Our next recipient is Dr. Kacy King, a graduate of the class of 1997 who serves as the Executive Director of Ohio State's Student Athlete Support Services Office and as a Senior Associate's Athletic Director, where she leads the team that ensures all of the Buckeye athletes are successful at school and on the field. Dr. King played nearly every sport during her years at BEXLEY, starting field hockey in 3rd grade and continuing through college at Wittenberg University, where she majored in business administration. She began her career in college admissions before transitioning into student athlete support services in order to help students, especially those who enter college underprepared as compared to the peers from districts like BEXLEY. Dr. King holds both a master's and a PhD in higher adult and lifelong education from Michigan State University. Please welcome Dr. Kacy King to the stage.
Hello. It seems unbelievable to me that I'm being recognized for doing a job that I love and building a career that makes me proud. My mom went to BEXLEY, my husband went to BEXLEY, his father taught at BEXLEY, my sister currently teaches and coaches at BEXLEY, and now I'm lucky that my children attend BEXLEY with their cousins. BEXLEY is our family. It is part of who we are. We lived away for over 20 years in Michigan, North Carolina, and Florida. When we returned for our annual 4th of July visit and my 20th high school reunion in 2017, I told Andrew that I wanted to move back. I wanted our children to have the experience of growing up here, of being able to graduate from BEXLEY, to riding on that reunion float on the 4th of July. I wanted that connection. Saying that out loud and making it happen are two different things. There are only 65 positions in the entire country for the job that I do. I support the academics of student athletes at Power 4 Division I institutions. And if I want to live in Bexley, Ohio, there is only one place to do that, and that is Ohio State. Being at OSU was my ultimate goal, my dream job. Soon after that 20th reunion, the position at Ohio State opened. I applied, I had so many interviews, and I came in second. I was crushed. My dreams were crushed. What was I going to do? We honestly thought maybe I should just leave the field and go away from higher education athletics, because being part of Bexley in this community was so important to me and to us. But I love the work that I do with student athletes. I love being in the world of college athletics. And so I needed to keep my focus on doing the best work I possibly could at the job that I had, so that the next time it came open, I was ready. And lucky for me, just a few years later, the position at Ohio State was open. And this time I landed the job. And we returned to Bexley in time for the 4th of July in 2021. Nearly 30 years ago, when I graduated from Bexley, I certainly did not know what I wanted to do. I didn't even know that this job and field existed. What I did know is I wanted to keep playing field hockey in college. That was about it. My experiences in the Bexley school system taught me I didn't have to know my path. I could say yes to opportunities. I could take my time to figure out what I wanted. Throughout high school, I took advantage of all sorts of programs. I went to Andros for the biology trip. I was an intern at a college during the WINGS program, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was great. I was a labbie, so I got to work with English and science teachers in my study hall time. And those experiences, coupled with being an athlete, taught me how to manage my time effectively and to be responsible. I've always identified as an athlete. I still do. I ran a marathon just last weekend. And my educational and athletic background from Bexley helped me with my skills, just as I am able to help others with those skills now. I am a goal setter. I will follow through. I make decisions. I use pockets of time available for the day to mark something off my to-do list. I look for solutions, and I attempt to find ways to go to a yes rather than telling someone no. When you think about college athletics, the student aspect of the phrase student athlete is probably not the first thing that comes to mind. But for me, it's my primary passion. When a student is admitted to college and we say, you can be a college student, it is our responsibility to provide the wraparound support and academic skill building necessary to make that true. In this field, because of how Bexley prepared me, I was always sure that if I could stay 3 pages ahead in the text, I could teach my student athlete what it was that they were seeking to learn. I could build those academic skills just like I built them here at BEXLEY. I also like to win. I work with programs who are excellent and achieve in both the classroom and in the field. My career has taken me from Michigan State to Duke to Florida State and now Ohio State. My kids have grown up going to sporting events and being around world-class athletes, but they also know that I work all the time. Nights, weekends, travel, it doesn't matter. I'm always working. But we make those sacrifices to have these opportunities. I've been a part of a national championship at every school where I've worked. I'm wearing my ring today from the Ohio State Championship just this past spring. But one thing you might not know, is that not only did Ohio State win a national championship in football, they are also the only Division I program in football who has a perfect academic progress rate. That means we are doing what we are supposed to in the classroom and on the field. And we are the only program for 2 years in a row. And hopefully we will continue that. And I know academic success isn't the flashy wins. I get it. But I get to work with students every day and help them be able to do both. Be successful on the field, on the court, in the pool, wherever it is. And now I've come full circle back to my field hockey roots, as I'm able to lead the Ohio State field hockey program and the men's lacrosse program at Ohio State as their athletics director, in addition to the academic work I do. I could keep going and sharing with you about my path and all the ways that BEXLEY prepared me, but truly what I want you to know is how thankful I am to receive this award for my upbringing and continued experience with BEXLEY schools, and how fortunate I am to work and lead in college athletics and higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. King. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce this year's recipient of the Emerging Leader Alumni Award. Sam Marcellino, a graduate of the BEXLEY class of 2005, was recently re-elected to BEXLEY City Council. Mr. Marcellino is a graduate of the University of Kentucky and received his JD from the University of Toledo College of Law. From his law school days at the University of Toledo, where he interned in the City of Toledo's prosecutor's office, he has maintained the belief that every day, good deeds done by regular people can make the world a better place. As a partner of the Columbus-based law firm Nager, Romaine, and Schneiberg, where he focuses primarily on workers' compensation litigation, Mr. Marcellino is especially committed to standing up for working people who often face daunting legal and financial challenges. As an elected official, attorney, and advocate, Mr. Marcellino has dedicated himself to building stronger, more inclusive communities and organizations. He currently serves on the board of Wexner Heritage Village, the Final Third Foundation, and Kids Chance of Ohio. Please help me welcome Mr. Marcellino to the stage.
Good morning, BEXLEY High School. It is great to be back here. I also am well aware that I'm the only thing that stands between you and lunch, so I will try to keep this as brief as I possibly can for you. But you know, I look out here and this is a lot more intimidating to me than my average jury or my average judge, or candidly even your parents when they come see me on City Council. And that's because you truly represent the future of our country in the coming years. I mean, what you heard today, I want you to try to take away as much as you possibly can from it, because they've all accomplished so much in their careers, and they've given you so much great information, and it's just up to you now to put that to work. You know, as I look back here through my time, I think back to my time in homeroom. I also was adopted at birth, and my parents moved me to BEXLEY, kicking and screaming when I was a freshman in high school. I didn't want to be here. I had plenty of friends in Massachusetts. I didn't see why we needed to move to Ohio. But I did. And I walked in that morning on my first day of school into Mr. Logston's homeroom. Mr. Logston, as you all know, I assume by that response, is a great guy and very nice. And this story is honestly not even about Mr. Logston. It's about the girl that was in front of me. The girl that was in front of me is named Nora, and she turned around and she said, "Hi, I'm Nora. Who are you?" That's it. And then we started engaging. And we started going back and forth in conversation. I mean, here I was, this new guy. I moved to Bexley during high school. It's a new town. I have no friends, a weird accent. I was 5 feet tall. They asked me if I was in the right building on the first day of school because they thought I should be in the middle school because I was so short. But you know, I think about that time with Nora and how she started my experience here. As I grew older, I realized that I want to accomplish more in life, but I hadn't done it to date. You know, I wasn't a good student. I graduated with a GPA that started with a 2, and while I was a part of vocal ensemble, and I think Horger turned a blind eye to my GPA when she let me onto the torch, I played soccer pretty poorly. I was just a below average student, but I really knew that I wanted to do more, and I started to think back as to what qualities I saw in the people that I wanted to be like. One overarching quality was kindness. It was later in my life I started to figure out how impactful that early experience, that earlier experience in Bexley had been on my life with Nora. On my first day, I told you, she was there, she welcomed me. And then, you know, that small gesture kind of played a massive role as to how I approach every single aspect of my life today, whether that's approaching a jury or approaching co-counsel, opposing counsel, a board that I may sit on, etc. I was able to reflect and realize that this tiny moment of kindness made everything else feel possible in my new environment at that time. I felt a little less scared. I was more willing to talk to other people. Maybe I'd make a friend. I started to believe that maybe I could belong in this new place. Kindness is not small. It's a superpower that candidly changes people's lives, including your own. It was years later for me. It's not easy to pick up kindness and just be kind at all times. It was years later for me that I was able to look back and work on the skill that Nora showed me in 2001. But, you know, be that welcoming person, ask about the hat that they're wearing, try to find common ground because it makes it easier to get along in the long run. This is part of my leadership style. This is my approach when I'm going before a judge or a jury. I'm leading with kindness first because it immediately disarms people and it draws them to you as opposed to pushing them away. So ask somebody, again, how are they doing? Send that text, check in on them, share food at lunch. Do whatever it takes just to make people feel welcome because they might be standing on this stage in a few years talking about this random kid in their homeroom that just said, "How are you doing?" I'm not perfect. I'm not always kind. It's kind of hard to be kind all the time. It really is difficult. It's challenging. It's impossible, I think, honestly, to be kind at all times. When I'm driving by my house here, you know, or leaving my house in the morning and you guys are whizzing by on your scooters and I have to stop because I'm in a rush to get to court, but I have to wait for you to keep, I'm not probably kind. I'm probably in my car a little frustrated, right? But that's when you have to work on showing kindness. And that's why I want to leave you today by just encouraging you to practice doing the hard things on purpose, especially when no one's looking. Everything else will work out, I promise you. But keep on working on those hard things and keep on being kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, and congratulations to all of today's award recipients. Can we give them all another round of applause? And now I'll turn the program back over to Mr. Cottle to wrap up.
So it struck me as I was sitting here listening to these 5 distinguished alumni, you know, they represent hundreds of other alumni. They've come to speak to you because they have a remarkable story, because they've made an impact. But there's kind of 3 things that struck me. 2 things that you don't have any control over. You will have an impact on this world. One way or another, you will have an impact on this world, on the people that you know, that the people that you meet in the field that you choose to work in the community that you live in. You will have an impact. 2, you don't get to determine the size of your impact. Many of the people sitting here had no idea, you know, where their passions and their interests would take them. And so we don't get to decide that. But you absolutely get to determine the direction of your impact. You heard about kindness. You heard about positivity. You heard about looking forward in a way that situates you and others to be the best that you can be. So don't focus on whether you're going to have an impact. You're going to. Don't focus on the size of your impact, out of your control. But focus on the direction of your impact and start with kindness. I appreciate everybody's attention today. I know that our guests will stay for a few moments if you would like to stop and ask a question. Other than that, we will go ahead and dismiss you to lunch. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day.